Well, I'm very excited this morning because this is the first ever interview I've done on the channel. I'm about to meet Steve and I'm walking along Potley Street in Bath. I used to live just around the corner from here in Forster Road when I first moved to the city, and this is actually a bit of a Hawkwind site. I'm going to show you a Hawkwind site now. Yeah, back in 1972 this was the Cleveland Hotel and the Bath Arts Lab at the end of Wishart Street. We're using it for all sorts of things, for an alternative festival, an alternative to the classical musical festival which still runs in Bath, and Hawkwind played in here. There were all sorts of different rooms and apparently they set up and played in the sort of foyer near the stairs or what have you. So that's that whole row of buildings here. Here's number 58, 57, and as you see it's very, very handsome and palatial. Here we are at Beckford Gardens. You'll remember my video about Beckford's Tower, that great avant-garde Gothic novelist who nobody in Bath seems to mention. As I was saying, I used to live just around the corner from here in Forster Road when I first moved to Bath, literally 2 minutes. And in the Wishart Street area, which I'll show you another time, now called Bath's Artisan Quarter, laughingly, there used to be several pubs which were sort of centres of, you know, sort of alternative activity, really. I mean, there was a time when Polly Styrene lived in Bath before she was in X-Ray Specs, and she was a DJ at a pub called the Hat and Feather. Allen Ginsberg visited Bath on one of those occasions as well. As I say, this is one of those roads where the street names change as you go further along. Beckford Gardens I've just walked down, and now we're looking at Hampton Row and Cleveland Row, which is really what we want to see. And this road here, which is a dead end, cul-de-sac I should say, was sort of the site of the alternative music scene that coalesced around members of Hawkwind in the late 80s and early 90s. And just down here, off to the left, there's a big reconstruction project going on, which is hidden away from prying eyes. There's actually a Lido down here, which hasn't been used since the early 70s, and I'm just going to show you. It's called Cleveland Pools, I believe, and there you go, through that doorway and down there's a lovely Lido. I'll try and put some pictures of it in the video, as I say. And this is where went to Cleveland Row, and down here was a house where Steve lived, a house which was dubbed Stoat Hall after his band, the Demented Stoats. Now, as ever, whenever I want to film somewhere where I think will be quiet, there's lots of work going, lots of noise. So this is Hampton Row, and until very recently these houses at the end have been boarded up for decades and decades, and I think one of them was the squat where Richard Chadwick lived, and I'm going to ask Steve about that because he'll know. And say Hampton Row then becomes Cleveland Row further on, and that's where Stoat Hall was. As you can see, we're above the railway line. There used to be a railway station here only for about 10 years, and it closed I think around about the beginning of World War I. It was meant to reopen because it was supposed to serve this part of the east of Bath. I'll just give you the skyline as well. You can see what sort of day it is. It's quite cold actually, and I live out in that direction, about 3 miles out of town. I'm meeting Steve up by the canal, so I'm just going to clamber up here now. So that's looking east, and this is the Kennet and Avon Canal, and there's a new development of luxury houses up there, as there often is in up and coming places like Bath, he said laughingly. We have lots of boats along here. I must say I rather like this blue boat, really, really nice sky blue, and a very sort of old English or Welsh name there, Ailf one. I thoroughly approve of that. Yeah, I'm really shocked by the sudden transformation of the last last five houses there, from, you know, condemned ruins boarded up with corrugated irons into what looked like becoming rather nice little terraced houses. So yeah, so I was hoping to show you sort of rundown former squats that were condemned, but they're being done up, which is good, you know, people to live in them. But you know, part of the character this area has really gone as a result of that. It's and I'm hoping they won't restore this grotty old bridge, because I love it. And as you see, there's all the work that's going on. Normally you go down there, it's dead quiet, there's nobody around, and you know, it has a real sort of bohemian feel about it, dare I say. In the background we have Snow Hill, one of the major social housing areas of Bath. So yeah, so the character of this, it looks like we might be seeing some gentrification. I'm not sure I entirely agree with that. And this is quite ironic, because I've just noticed in the centre of the frame there, on the roofs of the restored houses, there are these electronic bird scarers. That one looks like a sparrowhawk, and there's another one over there that looks a bit like, also looks like a sparrowhawk to me, but there you go. So we actually have hawks on the roofs of a place where there are massive Hawkwind connections. So Steve, here we are in Bath. Bore-da, yes, yeah. And you were just telling me about the origin of your surname. Can you go through that again for our viewers?
My brother did a search for it, and he came up that it was like Edmund, because when they did the census, they made all the Welsh drop the A of the ab bit, because they couldn't get their heads around the Welsh way of doing it. Like, and what happened? A lot of names like Ab Evan would be Bevan. Like, I don't know what Boyd is, but you know, names that begin with B that are Welsh tend to be with the A locked off.
Right. You know, look at me, I'm Welsh and I don't even know that, but it's an interesting thing.
That's what happened, because they couldn't cope with it.
No.
So they put the names together. Like. So mine was Ab Edmund,
right,
and it became Bedmond, and then Beamond.
Anyway, we're here and we're overlooking Hampton Row in Bath, and
God,
yeah, yeah. And as I've already said, I'm surprised to see the houses at the end here.
I'm just having a little bit of a shock seeing this bloody great big estate
behind us. I know, yeah.
It's the first time I stood here for quite some time and looked up.
This is the thing, isn't it? You turn around and you know, things are popping up everywhere.
The land around here is worth a fortune.
Yeah.
All this land is really valuable for building. That's why they've done it, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of like London, isn't it? Development sort of everywhere. It's shocking, really. So, so behind us, you know, I've got this romantic idea of yourself and the other guys who ended up in Hawkwind in Bath in the late 80s and early 90s. And if you sort of can tell me about the chronology, so you would have met people like Richard Chadwick and Bridget Wishart here back in those days?
No. Richard and I were at school in Hereford. He was in the year above me, so he left that, and I dropped down a year, so we were 2 years apart, but not in age like that. But no, I met Richard down the pub, down the Lichfield Vaults in Hereford.
And was this the first place you lived in Bath? Was it in this neck of the woods?
No, what happened was that I went off travelling. The lads, we all met each other around the fire. They said, Steve, we want to get a band together. You in? And I said, well, I've given all that up really. I'm a hippie. I just got my DOS bag and my guitar, no shoes. You know, I don't really do. I decided not to be a rock star. I'm going to do that instead.
Right.
He said, oh, come on. I said, all right then. And from there, I came to Bath and I squatted Anglo Terrace.
Right. Oh, I know.
Just about to see it right by the traffic lights there.
Yeah. I went to look at a house there once.
It was a proper old derelict squat.
It was, wasn't it?
They had guys on meths downstairs.
Right.
And people on speed upstairs. And I got a broom cupboard to live in for a few weeks, and then somebody moved out and I moved in, and then I got in touch with the guy. I think I must have gone back because we didn't have mobiles and stuff. I went back to Newport and said, come on guys, I found somewhere. They said, was it a squat? Yeah, it's a bit scummy, but it'll do for now. And we all charged down here. They went off walking whilst we were living there, they went off walking around the place and discovered empty buildings in this street.
Yeah, absolutely.
And said we can squat there. And what was happening at the time, there was like the housing association had just started up, and they were doing licenses for squats, and it was just to avoid place is being empty really. And we got a license on there, and we've got the music room downstairs, like basically set it all up there. Agreed not to play after 10 o'clock because we've got neighbours and what have you, but it was bloody loud until then.
When you were living here, so that would have been the Demented Stoats?
Yes.
And the end of the 70s, we got the train, we'll go again in a minute.
Initially, we wait for the train to go by.
Trans-Europe Express, station to station.
This is the sound of the road.
Yeah. All those train songs we know and love. Okay, we'll go again.
What was I saying?
We were saying,
initially, a guy called Dave came up from Hereford. He was the drummer.
Right.
Richard just had a pair of bongos. Right. And the guy, Dave, he moved back to Hereford and left his drums. So Richard started playing them. And he obviously was gifted in that department. He just knew how to do it instinctively.
Yeah.
Was it alligator, fish?
Richard was always very distinctive. I used to see him riding around town on his bike a lot.
Bomber.
Yeah, in the sort of 80s and early 90s, and I had long hair and he had very long hair, and he was one of those people who always stood out, and obviously he's been a long time with Hawkwind now, and it's a great career. So let's go back to Demented Stoats then. So it was yourself and Richard, and was Bridget involved?
Bridget, we went down the pub. We went down to the Hat and Feather. Yeah. And Bridget was working behind the bar along with Claire.
Right.
Who was in the
Smart Pills. Yeah.
And Rob and Richard were kind of quite
friendly
together, friendly,
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And initially it was going to be Claire as well.
Right.
But I can't remember why, but it didn't happen. It ended up just with Bridget.
Right. Okay.
And we just went and practiced every night for a year. And at the end of the year, 1979, we played the Corsham Art College was our first gig.
Yeah.
And there's a recording of that.
Right. Cool. Excellent.
Pretty terrible. I've done a remix of it. It's a bit better.
Yeah. Is that on YouTube now?
No.
Okay.
I'm working on that right now.
Well, we look forward to hearing that anyway.
Yeah.
Just to talk about Bridget a bit more, the Hat and Feather.
Yeah.
Obviously, you used to drink there.
Yeah.
I used to drink there back in the day as well.
Yeah.
And it always seemed to me like the centre of Bohemian Bath. And
yes.
Would you say that's a correct view?
It really was. It really was. It was a fantastic place.
Yeah.
And Jeff and his wife ran it. And then Ian Wood came along.
I remember Ian,
and took it over like in that, and it flourished even more.
Yeah.
It became more so.
Yeah. The funny thing is that you and I probably stood there drinking, next to each other or something.
Absolutely.
In the minute. We must have happened.
I probably stumbled and spilt my drink on you at some point.
I probably did the same on you, because I was sort of, those days one was off and off one's face, as they say, but in a good way. So then Smart Pills came later.
Well, Demented Stoats existed for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And we did a few gigs, and we didn't record anything.
Right.
Didn't do any actual recording. We were recorded a couple of times at Inglestone Free Festival as well.
Yeah.
And in the end, it also started falling apart, and the Demented Stoats, Rob and Richard were going different directions. Richard really wanted to do, and me, wanted to do hardcore thrash stuff. Rob wanted to do more dub and dancey stuff, because that's what the Demented Stoats was, a cross between that. It was like
a hybrid.
Hardcore and dance like that. So we split up anyway, and Richard and I looked at each other and thought, right, let's carry on. Let's just carry on, because the synergy between me and Richard has always been incredible.
Yeah.
Like, whenever we pick up an instrument together, something amazing happens.
That telepathic thing.
Yeah.
Like Dave Brock always says about him and Lemmy.
And about Mooney and.
It's just an incredible feeling, isn't it? There's some people you just gel with when you play with them.
So Richard and I went down the pub. I said to Richard, this is the story. I said to Richard, let's go down the pub. There's a bassist down there waiting for us. We went down there and we didn't find the bassist wasn't there, but we found somebody who knew somebody who had blue hair and played the bass guitar. We thought, well, that sounds good. So we met him a few days later, and it was George Fletcher, George the Dragon. And he couldn't really play very well at all.
But he looked the part?
He had a fantastic attitude.
Yeah.
We tried a couple of people. We tried Colin who played with Spirits Burning.
Right, yeah.
And he's a fantastic bassist, and we just didn't want somebody who was a fantastic bassist. We wanted somebody who was in the field.
Yeah.
Then we got Jenny on vocals. Jenny was our friend, Jenny Adams, who wrote poetry and had a nice voice. Wasn't really a singer, but she used to sort of chant, sing her poetry over the top of what we were doing like that. And we started just coming out with really unusual sort of music, like gothic sort of punky, dancey sort of mixture of stuff. And we did a few gigs with Jenny, attempted a demo, but that's another. That was pretty.
That's another story.
Yeah. I was listening to it yesterday. Actually, it's pretty terrible. The ideas, and we played a few gigs. Played the Walcott Village Hall. Played Hat and Feather. She was always quite a delicate sort of person, very, very kind of delicate. And she just said, "I'm going to have to stop doing the band like that." At which point we got Claire to sing. Now I think Claire had already joined with Jenny there, actually, thinking about it.
Correct me if I'm wrong now, Richard didn't get invited to join Hawkwind till round about, must have been 89?
88.
88,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we were doing really well, and I think like the Smartbills was a really good band by 1987. So we split up, and then once again me and Richard looked at each other and said, well, we don't want to stop, let's find a bassist. So we found Tim Crow, who was technically really good and always had a riff like that. So we started doing gigs with that. Then he wanted to play guitar, and I kind of decided I didn't really want to play bass anymore.
Yeah.
Because I'd only played bass because the other person wanted to play guitar.
Yeah.
And then we got offered a tour of Japan, all sorts of things, and I turned it down. I just said, nah, I don't want to do it with Tim, because he's, he doesn't want to play bass, and I want to play guitar, and I want a bass player.
Yeah.
Funny stuff, really. So we just split up, and that was it.
So were you living in this area at that time? Or?
At that point, I was living in number 2.
Wow.
Richard was living in number 6.
Right, and that's Hampton Row.
No, number 2. None of us ever lived in Hampton Row.
Right, because the two streets join, don't they?
Yeah, clearly. Yeah. There's 2 number 1s in the middle there.
Yeah.
I was living in number 2 and had a similar sort of setup to number 6.
Yeah,
there with
because of course the Cleveland Pools is behind the buildings, isn't it, which has been restored.
We had a practice room down there as well, and at one point they had a practice. There was another practice room as well.
Right,
a couple of doors up as well.
Okay. So it was round about 88 that Richard got invited to join Hawkwind.
Yeah, we went to Roll Right Stones.
Yeah.
And they don't know whether they actually invited him to play there. I don't think he played the first time he played with them was 88 Activator.
Right.
By which time I had moved to London.
Right.
With George. Yeah. We thought, come on, let's go and dig up some of them gold paving stones. Let's go and do it like that.
So tell me, when Richard joined Hawkwind, there was talk, I've heard talk about that Alan Davey was around town. Was Alan around town at that time? Did you know Alan at that stage?
Right, Alan moved to Bath.
Yeah.
At this point, like that, when
because I can't ever recall seeing Alan around Bath, and I was going to see Hawkwind a lot at that point, but maybe my mind was on other things. But so Alan was in Bath at that time.
Yeah. got a flat up behind Snow Hill there.
Right. Yeah.
And at this point I still had number 2 and the practice room downstairs.
Right.
Oh, not much into all. He said, "Oh, they got a new bassist now. He's called Alan, and he's bloody amazing." I said, "Oh, really?" And then it came to the point that, so I said, "Well, let's have a jam, like in that down number 2, like in that."
So that's where you got to play with Alan.
Yeah, and it just took off. You know what I mean? Synergy, like.
So I guess that's the connection then that led to you sort of briefly fronting Hawkwind in '91.
Yeah.
Which must have been amazing. Yeah. And it was an interesting one, that, because you know, we see Hawkwind as a band whose membership evolves constantly, and in the sort of classic period in the 70s, we all remember how there's a different lineup on every album, and you know, that was part of it. And it was a real shock when it was announced that the tour was going ahead and Dave was staying at home.
Yeah.
That's a big pair of shoes to step into.
Well, yeah.
How did you feel about that?
Well, at that point I'd moved back to Bath. That's what happened. I moved back from London because Huey left, and I thought to myself, that could be me.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I'm too far away in London, need to be over West Country, so I moved back. I was doing really well. I had a job as a laserist at the planetarium.
Right.
I had a lovely flat, I had a car. I really found the gold paving stones in London. I did really well.
Yeah.
But threw it all away to come back here,
right,
to live and squatted number 3.
Great.
Basically, like in that, there was the cut price tour. Dave didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
He also did have Hawklord stuff to do. He had stuff, and it was in a hurry. They had to get it done. And they said, "We will do this tour."
So can I just ask, the Hawklord stuff? What specifically was that?
I think it was the live.
Getting the live album together. The live '78 album.
Is it out now? I think,
Is that the live '78 album? Would be, wouldn't it? Yeah.
So.
Oh, interesting.
And Dave said, "No, I don't want to do it. Why don't you get Steve to do it? He knows all the songs." And Alan and Richard are what? What? So yeah, Dave, get Steve along. He'll do it all right, like that. So they came and asked me, and I said, "Okay." Yeah,
it's something that it's a once in a lifetime chance, isn't it?
I said, "Okay."
Yeah.
We rehearsed out of the Five Ways, little 5-way studio out there at Corsham. Rehearsed down there for a long weekend.
Right. And that would have been yourself, Richard, Alan, Harvey, and Bridget.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then went off and did it.
Yeah.
Which at the time I was squatting below the Lansdowne Crescent. There was a big house there.
Yeah.
And we were all squatting down there. And basically I just had to put my stuff into storage and go for a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
And who chose the set list? Was that sort of a collaborative effort between you all, or did you get to do your favourites, as it were?
I thought we were going to do Space Bandits.
Yes, yeah.
So I rehearsed that like mad.
Yeah, because that's the obvious thing at that time, isn't it?
Yeah, they gave me some tapes and what have you. And I practiced like mad all the Hughes solos. And then we got to the rehearsal and said, "Come on, let's do all the old stuff." That's what they want. Like, and that.
Yeah.
So we did do the bass. We did do Space Bandit stuff, but we did all the old stuff as well. Like.
So obviously Bridget then, because you think of that period, and obviously one thinks of Images and Black Elk Speaks and Back in the Box.
See, in the meantime, we had done a thing called Pillwind.
Yes,
which was me and Richard,
bit like
and Alan.
Pinkwind back in the early 70s with Pink Fairies. Yeah. What sort of favourites did you find yourself performing? What did you enjoy singing and playing the most?
Well, I must admit, I like the Space Bandit stuff. It was a bit hard for me singing the Dave stuff because he's got a higher register voice than me.
Yeah, he does have a high voice, doesn't he? That sort of folksy timbre.
I really had to use all my ability as a choir boy, as a cathedral chorister who'd been trained for years. that was the only way I got through it. Like, but yeah, it was hard. It was hard singing Dave stuff. Easy, I didn't find it difficult playing and stuff because we got similar styles.
Yeah, he's very punk, isn't he, Dave? I mean, when you watch him play, there's something about the way he thrashes away, which you can see how that fed into things like buzzcocks and what have you.
Looks like he's at an anvil.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or like with a lump hammer.
Yes, yeah, he really it's
he does lots on the upstroke.
Yes, it's a beautiful thing to behold, I must say. I always love seeing him play.
No, I do find it fascinating watching Dave play.
And obviously Harvey was the old hand at that stage. And
Harvey had a bit of a rough time on that tour.
Oh, really?
He had really bad sinusitis.
Oh no.
And so he was quite sort of like, he wasn't very happy for a bit.
Everybody always says what Harvey's such a nice guy.
Oh, he's lovely.
Yeah,
lovely guy. But he can get moody like anybody.
Of course, yeah.
When you're on a cut price tour.
Yeah, absolutely, must be hard at times.
Because we only stayed at a couple of beds.
Yes.
Over the whole thing, and most of the time we were on the bus.
So it was kind of home from home in a funny sort of way.
Oh, it was fine for me. It was like, this is I'll stay.
Yeah.
At the end of the tour, I just said, well, where are we going next? I mean, they say, oh, let me go home. And I just wanted to carry on.
So these days, what are you up to?
These days, what am I up to? These days, well, I was doing the Time Lords for a bit, and I found I couldn't actually maintain that. I've got a huge backlog of Time Lord stuff which needs finishing off. I've got 3 albums which need finishing off. I've been waited for one of them, wait till Richard had time to do the drums on it. And he's done it now, but it's not very good, and I think we're going to have to do it again.
Right, back to the drawing board. And you've been involved with Spirits Burning as well? Hollow Lands album, the Moorcock one, because I'm a huge Moorcock fan. I've never knocked around to getting it.
Yes, I'm on a track on that one.
Yeah. Have you ever met Mike Canal?
No.
He's a lovely man.
Never met Bob Carver either, unfortunately.
That's a real tragedy, isn't it?
Richard met him. He said he was a bit out of it. And he just couldn't get much sense out of it.
Yeah, Bob had some rough times, didn't he? What a shame. Yeah.
I'm making music with Richard at the moment.
Great.
Going out to his place and he's got his electronic drums out there. When he's not doing stuff with Hawkwind, we do. Is it the Little Big Men? Is it the Ancient Ones? Is it Steve and Rich? I don't know what it is. Like the way we're working on at the moment. I think the one track that we've just been working on is actually a Little Big Men. Well, it's just a name to hang things on, isn't it?
Great stuff.
I don't know. I'm up for being in a band. Anybody want to get a band together?
Well, you heard it here, folks. One final question, Steve. Looking back over your musical career, what would you say was the highlight? What was the moment that you enjoyed the most?
I was thinking about this the other day. Obviously, the last night of the tour, the Hawkwind tour. Also, the Ancient Ones. We didn't discuss the Ancient Ones. That was what me and Richard and Karen, and it was like folk dancey, progressive folk dancey sort of stuff. None of it's a bit of it's about there was one gig we did with them with the local Boggle Circus, Charlie and all that. Yeah. They squatted Western Island and put a big top down there, and we did a gig down there. That was fantastic because we'd just done a tour. We'd done an Ancient Ones tour. See, it was originally meant to be Richard on drums, and he had to bow out because he got too busy with Hawkwind, so we got Silas in, and then ended up doing, touring and doing quite a lot with the Ancient Ones. With Demented Stoats, I'll just go through the bands, right?
Do it, yeah.
The Demented Stoats, we played the People's Free Festival down on the rugby field down there.
Oh yeah.
It's in 1980, was it?
Yeah.
I think 1981. That was amazing. Nick Turner supported us.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be we were supposed to be supporting him, but it's one of those ones where the last band on, people have gone home and then it was us.
Yeah.
We played a fantastic gig. Got videoed.
Yeah.
Video got taken to the Himalayas. Guy brought it back, died on the way back, lost the video. Oh no! So that never happened. Right, Smart Pills. Best gig we ever did possibly would be the 100 Club.
Yeah.
I think.
Great venue.
Or Ingleston Free Festival.
Right.
The ancient ones I said was down at Western Island. Who else was there? Pillwind. Best gig, Ingleston Free Festival, I think, like that. Yeah.
So what was the lineup of Pillwind for that?
It was me and Richard and Alan.
Right.
The three of us.
Well, there we go. Thanks very much, Steve, for that, and it's been great to talk to you. Here we are, Outlaw Bookseller and Steve Bemand in Bath, signing out for now. Bye.
Cheers, thanks very much.